What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Radical Cruise podcast, where we dig deep to reach high, and of course, it's always progress through action. I am your co-host, Peyron Baxter,
I'm your co-host Ram Sandoval.
I'm Ron Cabuno. Glad to be back.
and we are here. Folks, it has been a slow news week, so we don't have anything to talk about. Nothing's going on. We just kick back. I think we're gonna be talking about our favorite, pastries and colors. I think, or I don't know. Maybe we got more stuff to talk about. But we're gonna be getting into everything that's been happening since the BBL, the big ugly ass bill passed. What's been really happening there? Of course, the what's gonna wash up on people who are out there in America. There is the flooding in Texas that's been happening. There are international things that's been going on. There are of course, locally with Mayor Burns. We got some more news there and some updates. So we got a lot to get into. We got a lot to get into. Rom has the rundown sheet. I don't have that in front of me. I'm sure y'all can just tell from that very loose intro.
Uh-oh.
But I know I just sit out. I'm getting more healthy, and look what just happens. Phlegm pops up when you don't want it. Yeah. So where are we starting at, Rom?
Yeah, so we got tonight, we are talking about, first, I think the theme for this episode is what are we doing with our power?
There you go.
And
That's what I
so
was trying to say.
Yes. So it's been a tumultuous week, right? And I think a lot of people who pay attention, I think it's probably been a lot of doom scrolling going on. I think, we hopped on after the BBB, big billionaire bill, whatever you want to call it, passed on Thursday. I think there's for a lot of folks, a lot of extra anxiety started to set in. And, for me, uh, it didn't really surprise me, right? So I didn't really have any faith in some Republican holding the line and
Right.
stopping this and doing the noble thing that just was not in the deck. And so, but I do think there's other things that have gone on this week. The opening of what do they call it? Alligator Auschwitz or alligator Alcatraz,
Right.
as the White House is calling it, and they're poking fun at this. And then you had 2 days ago the flooding in Texas, which is more and more tragic as we learn more and more. It's very reminiscent of what happened here in North Carolina last year with the
Hmm.
flooding, and they say, oh, this is a 100-year storm. If it's a 100-year storm, then why is it happening a year later, right? So I think that it's just there's a lot of things happening, and I think we have to kind of come to grips with reality of where things are going, and where they continue to go. Right? I think Payron. I think probably RC. We've been ringing the warning alarms and trying to warn people, and I think even on this podcast, being reserved in terms of
Yeah.
like not wanting to create panic and create alarm. But the reality is I think we're right on track for kind of preparing for where we should be preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. And we got to do more than hope, right?
Mm.
Hope is
Yeah.
hope is the gift and the curse, right? Because hope will have you thinking that Murkowski is going to hold the line, and everything's going to the Supreme Court is going to hold the line, and that's just not going to happen. So we have to actually turn that hope into actions, right? And that's what we've always talked about on this podcast is creating progress through action, and really survival and for a lot of folks through action. And I just want to talk through that as we go through this episode and what that actually looks like.
Yeah.
To that point right there, I think I have never been more like scared, right? A little bit because you can see the network of society and how fragile it is, and once you take away the people who pick our food, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of these doomsday preppers, right?
Hmm.
Because if they put into action all the hatred and what have you that is in their brain, well, that's might be what comes to pass. So I'm sitting here saying I need to get me some canned food while also trying to push back on the next whatever they're going to roll out, because we have to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. But things are crossing my mind that have never crossed before. I'm not going off the deep end. I'm just trying to say, what is a sensible position in the times that we're living in?
I think the preppers that we kind of laughed at, there was, was it AMC shows about and all that stuff, A&E
Yeah.
shows about. They've come to be somewhat correct, right? That, there was this idea that the government was going to come for them and they had to prepare to respond. They just didn't probably expect to be the ones they were actually voting for. And now they're in a position where they are either having to come to the realization that maybe their positions were a bit off center, or they have to double down. And I think the rest of us are now kind of also rethinking that, right? Like, what is our position within society to make sure that we are educating other people, but while also, defending and protecting ourselves. And folks, as you're listening to this, don't think that the three of us are like, we're totally emotionally balanced. We are not. We are actively still processing it just like you, but we're trying to use our voices, trying to use our knowledge, trying to use our experiences to help maybe give you guys a different perspective, to know that you're not alone, to Ram's point, that like that's what fascism wants. It wants you to feel alone. This is why fascism, or the far right, as you may call it, rises in areas that are very isolated. And that's been like that across history, across the world. In Germany, Hitler used to tell the folks that lived in the countryside, you are the true Germans. You are the real Germans, not those ones that live in metropolitan areas with all the homosexuals and different race peoples. You guys are the real Germans. That is a real thing Hitler told people. There's a reason why Mein Kampf was banned. It wasn't because it was super evil. It's because it would expose the Republican playbook. So I just want you all to realize that, we are also processing this, and we're just going to talk through it today because it is a heavy moment. And one thing I want people to kind of understand is that one thing, I think, to be a descendant of enslaved people that have always laid the blueprint for us to either survive our way out of situations or to fight our way out of situations, is that you have to be prepared to die before you can begin to live. And there's a certain level that we have to become okay with. Not saying we want this to happen, but we have to be okay with this whole thing collapsing. And because collapsing doesn't mean that it's going to fall on your head or you're going to die, but it gives you the time to then think, what type of society do we need to build? How do I want to function in this next iteration of society, right? We talk about agriculture. I know Rom Gardens, we just started a little garden over here. We feeling pretty froggy with our stuff over here. We feeling pretty good. Got some bell peppers and some squashes and some watermelon growing. But like, it's what does this next phase of the world look like? Because for so long, for hundreds of years, we've been told this thing looks this way by people that never considered the three of us to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So we have to start imagining, if these tenants fall, these it's okay to let things that weren't good die.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean like what I'm saying. So I just want to just be clear. I'm not saying, oh, I want democracy to die. I got democracy right here. I'm not saying that. But we got to start imagining, if these institutions that were, again, were not for myself. I was considered three-fifths a person when that document was written, and the Constitution. If those things fell, what type of social contract do I want to go into with people that want to exist around me? So I just
Yeah.
want us to start thinking bigger and more expansive.
Yeah, I mean, and I think collectively, we will obviously survive just as we have in the past, right? But there was bloodshed, and bloodshed has already taken place, right? When
That's right.
USAID was canceled, all of these funding across the globe, hundreds of thousands of people have predicted to have died or will die due to that. What happened in Texas, not having the early warning signals. Now, I'm not saying that there would have been no death and misery, but I'm saying that, when you don't have warnings and things like that in place, it more than likely could have been less severe, and we don't know the full impact. So these things are already are taking effect as people lose their health care, they lose their safety net, right? Their SNAP benefits, children being fed, their survival. Those are going to be victims, and they're not asking to be martyrs of what's going on, but that's the unfortunate fact. And I think that and one thing we also talked about for me several months ago was coming to grips with reality is that it's going to burn down, so to speak. All of this is going to burn down. We have to, I think, for us and for me, what I look forward to is the rebuilding, and creating something that was better than before, right? Not trying to go back to what we had and hold on to crumbs and things like that, but to actually build something and reimagine something. And since then, my peace of mind has been far more tremendous than in the past, when kind
Yeah.
of just doom scrolling, if you will, right, and just kind of not having anything to look forward to. I'm not saying that I don't look at a headline and have fear in my heart, like, damn, I might end up over in Alcatraz, or damn, I might end up dead at a traffic
In,
stop,
in,
right?
in,
So,
in the middle of the ocean, they're taking the planes half across the ocean, saying they're going to some place, and
right. So it's a very unpredictable time, right? And people like to have the safety of like some predictableness, and that's one thing that I think Biden did have, right? Is he portrayed as that there was a steady hand on the on the scales,
Part of
right?
that linear timeline of American trajectory. We
Right.
weren't
right,
taking
right.
any steps back, and we weren't. There was no valleys, just all peaks, right?
Now we
But he
have.
was he was challenged by that in Europe when they were like, when he said America's back, and they said for how long?
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's 4 years, and the globe can't really trust us at all anymore, and it depends on which side of the bed that Trump woke up on, and how his
How he
4 a.m. shit
tweets.
went. Yeah, exactly. So what Musk says in his tweet, and so a very emotional man. But anyways. I just want people. I don't have the answers, right? But I want people to
No,
just
no,
start
no,
thinking
no.
about, like, what do you do in the business world, right? Like, what are you saying in the boardroom? What are you contributing to your company? How are you saying, like, what does DI look like in your company? How are you doing those type of things? What are you doing in your community? You continuing to volunteer and give money to organizations that are near and dear to your heart. Are you actually going out to these council meetings and keeping up what's going on and spreading the word in the community? I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit at the end of the show, but I think even here in Union County and in Monroe, that the community and us included have had the opportunity to help shape the narrative, help get publicity
Yep.
within the local publications, and to make change, right? So those are the type of things that I think we really have to get. I think we as a collective have to start
I
being creative, right? Like, how do we use our creative skills? What do we do, like, as what's in our skill set, that we can actually do to contribute? Like, yeah, some people don't want to go and speak, but hey, like, you're a great artist, right? So create some great art. You're a DJ, right? Hey, volunteer at an event. There's just a lot of different things that I think that we as a collective community have to reimagine and rethink community again, right? Because we're in 2025. Community is, a lot of people is like it's hopping on Instagram and Twitter, and it's finding you can find your tribe very easy. That's
That's right.
half the problem to begin with, because these people find some idiot that believes some other
You're
idiots
right,
that can
right.
find something in common. But now we have to get back a little bit into the real world. I'm not saying that's not the real world, but I think we have to, like, re-engage and kind of be there for each other. And especially for me, it's like I'm in the suburbs, and I feel away from what I would consider my community, right? So I can't just go outside and, like,
Yeah,
we're preparing for whatever survival. We're
I got
you're
you.
feeding kid. Yeah, exactly. Like, giving somebody a haircut and that type of thing. It's not like, just walking down the street to your favorite, like, it's just different. Right. And, I think that's going to be a challenge. I think it's a challenge for a lot of communities, especially Black communities and some of the more well off or privileged folks, just kind of not gonna be there right in the thick of, I think, the most vulnerable, right? And that scares me to think about that. You know what I mean? Like, how do you continue to uplift the community and mentor and be there. So those are the type of things that like scare me and like weigh heavily on my mind. It's just that like I feel in my little like space, and I'm on my podcast and I'm talking, but there's people that are literally hurting and will hurt, and it's scary, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I know I talked a lot, but I had a lot to get
No,
off
no,
my
that
chest.
was that was good, man. You're right. It's we have to start imagining something better for all of us, and I think, what does that look like? I think we have to almost teach some people how to be in community, right? Or how to care. I think one thing about that America's been really good at for all of us is to strip us of our empathy, strip us of our humanity. That's one thing that colonization does is it puts people into segmentations. It puts people into boxes. It says there's certain people on top that deserve to be on top. There's certain people on the bottom that are deserving to be at the bottom. And that's what got us to where we are, right? Is this apathy and this indifference towards the suffering of others. Um, as RC knows, I'm always going to say a book that I've read, but Octavia Butler, who was an Afrofuturist, sister just died, I think last year, but she was well ahead of her time. She wrote these two books that are super famous, Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents, about ironically, about Altadena burning down, which burned down this year. In California, in LA, the LA fires. She was from that area, from Altadena, that burned down this year. She wrote this book in 1993, and it was set in after the November 2024 election in January. And when did Altadena burn down? Was 2025 after the November 2024 election, and to this crazy right-wing fascist police state from this guy named Donner, who was a right-wing Republican who ran on the phrase of "Make America Great Again." This book was written in 1993.
Mhm.
She was well ahead of her time. But
Hey,
anyway,
America First has been going on since the 30s, right?
oh, absolutely. But Gerald L.K. Smith, with the in the silver shirts. But I'm bringing this book up because there was the main character is this young girl, and she has this kind of power. It's not really like a superpower, but it's this kind of this I guess a slight trait she has. It's called hyper empathy, where basically she can feel the emotions of another person. If you're you're having sex, you feel the orgasm of the other person while you have your own orgasm, and that's a certain level of feeling another person. But also, if you're being raped, right, you feel the pleasure of the person that is raping you, plus your own pain, right? And she talks about this, through her sensory, that like if we could feel what other people were feeling, will we torture anybody?
Mm.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we're trying to do as we try to, I'm always talking about expanding our empathy, expanding our understanding, expanding our world perspective. Because once we do that, then we start to understand that you are in the exact same boat that I am, Mr. Republican person. But like also on RC before we start recording, there's certain people that just don't view me and Rom as human beings. So that
Mhm.
just won't land. But once we start to build that class consciousness that we deserve better, that we deserve to be taken care of. A point of a government is to protect us from corporations, right? To protect us from the largesse of these organizations that are trying to extract as much time, labor, and energy from the rest of us, and then of course drive profit. And the BBL bill is a really good rundown of what that is because it is the largest theft from all of us. I don't care if you're wealthy. I don't care if you're I'm not saying wealthy. I mean like middle class wealthy, not the 1%. If you're in the 99% and you pay taxes, like again, our tax dollars should go to public services, and now our tax dollars are literally going to give billionaires a $12,000 pay cut or a tax write off, right? I'm probably saying the wrong thing. What's the word I'm thinking of? Not tax write off, but
Deduction.
Deduction.
deduction, thank you. Um, is that the same thing? Is that the same thing as tax write-off? Is that
It can be
Yeah.
okay? Well, you get my point.
itemized deductions and
You guys
write-offs.
are
Yeah,
getting my
absolutely.
point,
Yeah.
right? But, instead of going back to us, so I just want us to think like, as we expand our empathy, like please don't be bogged down
Well,
because as Toni Morrison said, the point of racism is to keep us distracted. But it's not just racism; it's sexism, it's homophobia, it's xenophobia, it's the cats and dogs, even the cats and dogs. It's all these things to keep us distracted. They're robbing all of us.
Yeah, and it is tax. It actually is continue the tax deduction, so they have a lower tax rate
See,
permanently.
I knew that. Yeah, right,
And
right.
so it actually is a tax cut for the billionaires. But on top of
Yeah.
that, we already put a majority of our taxes go into the military,
Right.
and you have to start to ask yourself, well, what are we protecting? What are we truly protecting? When some of the most prosperous nonviolent countries in the world have a fraction of the military spending that we do, and we continue to be involved in war after war after war. I think it's my entire life we've been involved in some war. Ever since I was
Yeah.
Iraq and Desert Storm, and then it became Afghanistan and Iraq again, and we give billions to Ukraine, and here we are, Iran, and billions and trillions. I don't know about trillions, I can't say that factually, but Israel, right? So it's in these countries, in countries like Israel, they're heavily subsidized programs
That's right.
that we don't even get, yet we're
That's
funding
right.
their wars. You kind of have to start to question the perspective, right? Your perspective a little bit of like, okay, this is far beyond helping Israel defend themselves. We're helping them actually
We prop up their economy.
prop up their economy, prosper, help them create programs to create startups, businesses. Their government is very supportive of businesses, startups, tech, all kinds of stuff. So, anyways, the point is like our money's going to the
Not
military,
us.
and they're making cuts for billionaires who have increased their wealth exponentially, even in the past 10 years, like past 5 years, 10 years, and there's got to be some sort of balance, and there is no balance, right? And when these corporations continue to get their money, um, they don't reinvest in the company, they don't invest in their people. They basically break off their stockholders, the C-suite. So, we're just it's backwards, right? And I think people have to realize where we're at with that. So there's a couple of things I wanted to, and also Musk. He says that the Elon Musk, the fundamental weakness of Western civilization, he believes is empathy. These are
Oh, well, there you go.
billionaires.
Well, there you go.
He
Well, I mean,
believes.
we're taking this from the world's folks. We're listening to the world's wealthiest man, the world's richest man, who needs to take a copious amounts of drugs just to feel happy. So take that for what it's worth. Like the whole goal of our happiness is tied to our wealth. This is the world's richest man who needs to take a horse's amount of ketamine just to feel happy. So
He didn't
um,
get to be the
maybe we're fighting for
world's
the wrong
richest
things.
man by leading a normal life. So he doesn't understand what normal emotions are, and he doesn't understand the give and take necessary in someone's normal day.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, same thing with Donald Trump, right? Like these people have lived their lives
privileged
outside
people.
the bounds of normalcy and outside the bounds of average humanity. So
Right.
they have no idea what it actually is. So my question is, where's the Third Continental Congress going to be held?
Mm,
Like you have to think up to that level because
mm.
you have to, like you're talking about, tear it all down and start
Oh, I'm
anew.
not saying tear it down. I'm saying be
I'm talking
prepared
about
that it
this
could fail.
founding documents. There are so many
Mhm.
flaws in it. There are so many loopholes. It's like the tax code. I don't want to redo the tax code first. I want to redo the Constitution. I
Right,
want to see, like,
right.
show me the document, the living document that'll be impervious to all this originalist BS where they can
Hmm.
fall back on, well, it wasn't in there. Well, it's in there now, dude. So we're going to have to follow that because if you give all of these wildly popular opinions and policies the floor to the American public, that will be okay. We will get gun control. We will get all these things that we want because they make sense. And
Right.
common sense is completely absent right now.
That's
So I
right.
think that like it's a bandwidth thing as well for the average American where
Hmm.
you can only do so much. And if we just take 20 to 30% of our doom scrolling away and then reinvest it in something more positive, then you start to see, like you say, more people entering into those conversations day by day because they have that much time for it, but they also understand that there is a way out because they're seeing people give the roadmap to them, at least theoretically.
And you know
Yeah,
who did that? South Africa did that. When apartheid fell and they created they tore up their old constitution that was a Boer constitution, right? The
Hmm.
European settler constitution, and they created a new constitution with everyone included, right? They ironed out everything for everybody. Not as clear to this day, is South Africa a beacon of equality? Absolutely not. But its constitution is held well above ours by international legal scholars of at least a founding document that at least gives everybody the exact same rights. Now they're working through the cultural aspects of it, right? Where we have violence and murders and things of that nature for people unwilling to give up power. But at least on the foundational part, everybody has the same rights. As
Well,
Malcolm
you're
X said,
looking at
yeah.
the race or the the race inequality equal to economic disparities in that country just basically tell the story of why things happen when 90% of the wealth is still
Right.
held in that 5 or 10% of white people in the country.
Hmm.
So the equality hasn't trickled down after redoing what you had to do. So maybe they didn't have as much social capital to bring everything, the needs be met by the people, because obviously there are far too many people still struggling in that country, and they have no other means of recourse.
yeah. Well, one of the things I think when I say it's going to burn down, I do think it's the end of the American empire, and I don't think that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think that Trump is unintentionally ending it, and it will backfire spectacularly, but unfortunately not before a lot of heartache and pain for a lot of folks. So
Yeah,
yeah, so one of
I was
the
going to say go to Project 2025 Tracker and just keep track, because
Mm,
they gave you the
mm.
playbook and they're showing you bit by bit. And if it hasn't been done, then imagine that's what they're going for next.
That's right.
and I think there's two things that are really going to keep it from getting as worse as it can is resistance of the people, and creating a support system for the people outside of the government. And then I do think that there's a lot of incompetence within this administration that ultimately will backfire. And we'll actually talk about how that's shown in the past few weeks. As a matter of fact, this next story,
Okay.
we have Elon Musk, who's so
Oh,
we've talked about
my favorite
when
face.
two narcissists and two one was a billionaire, the one was a millionaire. Now that he's become president and lined his pockets, he's a billionaire again. But when Trump and Musk, first off, a lot of people saw this coming. Just when you have two narcissists working together, they're eventually going to
Yeah, it
fall
was a
out.
ticking time
And
bomb from the beginning. We are like,
when,
right,
when anyone is in Trump's orbit, when have they? Who do you know? Like, name one person who's
nobody.
actually been successful post a
I guess Stephen
relationship with a.
Miller. I guess he's able to come back again, like Stephen Miller. I mean, success is if he's aging like Nosferatu. But I mean, that's I guess success because Nosferatu. We know his name of vampires. We only know so many vampire names like Dracula, Count Chocula, the Count. Only so
I
many.
mean,
So
they've all went to jail. Even Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is still on Trump's nuts, but he, after
well, at
not
least
the
Steve
3 years.
Bannon's wearing now. He's down to 4 shirts. He used to wear like 5 shirts. Now he's down to 4. So that's Rob. You're shortchanging these guys, man.
So yeah, Trump. Musk has announced he has a new party. He's obviously fallen out with
Oh,
Trump.
okay.
But this is how
And
this is how two narcissists. This is literally textbook. Like how you,
right, right.
like every time I've seen two narcissists come into each other's orbits, it ends like this, and it never the relationship never recuperates, right? So, anyways, Trump had a little bit to say. Um,
Starting a third party. I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
It was developed for no parties.
Right. But he don't know history. He don't know
Yeah,
history.
he don't know yesterday
We
unless
don't
you
know.
wrong him, and then he keeps that shit right here, man.
That's
I
true.
have no
That's
problem.
true.
I have no problem with a third party because, well, first off, there are multiple third parties that exist today. But the getting out of this two-party system is probably one of the another good thing that could potentially come out of this. I don't think that Musk offers any sort of viable alternative from my
Just
perspective.
a purse.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me, Rom, that you don't want to stand in a political party with the guy who did two Sig Heils and spreads the white replacement theory? You don't want to be a part of that
Well,
movement?
yeah,
Come
I had
on.
somebody on my timeline on Facebook, and they were saying, "Well, we need to take his money," and I'm like, "No, no, the hell we don't." Like this man, I don't
Hey,
like first. First
growing
off,
up in the hood, they tell you all money ain't good money.
that was exactly my reply, and again, I stand by what I said about him being a terrorist. He's committed, I think, one of the biggest terrorist attacks, unrealized terrorist attacks in American history. Um,
Hmm.
Again, through the slashing of funding and all of these things, and not understanding that this line item actually has thousands of lives attached to it. So you're just looking at things. First off, he's not even an accountant. So they're just looking at line items through it from a technical
They weren't looking
perspective.
at, I don't think they were looking at anything. I think they were trying to get
Well,
data.
they
I don't
weren't
think they
even.
And
were
not only
actually.
that,
Here's
they're
the
not
thing.
even coming.
No,
Go ahead.
they were looking at something, but they weren't even creating algorithms. Like they weren't even creating AI algorithms. They were literally creating Boolean searches of finding
Right. That's
keywords.
what I
It's
mean.
kind of
Hmm.
DEI cut, diversity cut. Like they didn't care if it was neural. It didn't matter to them what they
What was
were
that
studying.
that mice thing? It was like
A
a trans.
transgenic
No, it wasn't transgender. It was
no
trans something.
transgenic or
Transgenic. That's
yeah,
right. And they were like,
transgenic.
"Oh, that's trans. Get it out of here."
And then so
Big balls
the
certified.
data,
Psh.
you're correct, the data in itself, but even the siphoning of data, looking at this data that violates
Right.
privacy laws. There was so much that's being so many laws that were broken. Rules for thee, not for me is basically what they looked at. So I again, the amount of lives, I think it just happened in Texas also. Like you had cuts
To NOAA,
to
the
Noah,
National Weather
But
Service.
transparency and
the
accountability
number of
was
people.
the name of the day.
Yeah, so they
And
cut
this
staff.
man will not even come up to answer to congressional subpoenas. Like,
Mm-mm,
we have so many questions because you had such an outsized role. Like, nobody has ever cut that many jobs in such short a time. Nobody has
mm-mm.
ever ended so much American progress in such quick fashion. And you're
Right.
not even going to come up as basically an honorary citizen of this country and tell us what the hell you just did and tell us why you did it for the good. And you can't, there's no explanations. And there were people dying on the other side of the world because they weren't getting their AIDS medication within days.
Yeah.
And that was documented, right? So, like,
So
you have to bring these people to account.
yeah.
And I think that's a tenet of white supremacy though of culture, and I think the media is really big on that. That they normalize this shit, but like white supremacy culture is I'm in control of everything but responsible for nothing. We just want to be in power. We don't have the skill set, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the education, but we need to be in these seats of power, whether it be politics, whether it be business, whether it be finances, whether it be whatever. We need to be at the front. We need to see ourselves, even though we are incompetent, we are unqualified, and we are entitled. We need to be there. And this is what you
Let's
get. This is what you get when you do not have people that are actively trying to care about all people, but trying to curate a perspective, trying to make sure they're inoculating themselves from any sort of criticism. This is why they can't have reporters asking questions. This is why they can't have science, challenging what Trump saying COVID's going to go away magically in 3 to 4 days. Remember that in 2020? It'll go away magically. It'll go
well,
away in 4 to 5 days.
well
I
It'll
mean,
just
now
go
within
in
the
there.
current information environment, it is obviously, we talked about this before, it can be more advantageous or more difficult to find credible sources in terms of what you want to believe and what you're missing out on. And what is it, the ground news app, where they tell you
Oh
where
yeah.
the blind
Hmm.
spots are, whether it's being
But you
covered
gotta
more
want
on the
that
left
shit,
or on the right.
RC. You gotta
That's what
want
I
that
mean.
shit.
So that is like this whole homework that we all collectively have to do as a nation.
Hmm.
And it starts, like, I have my checklist, right? So I start with, I have to understand where the school board meetings are and when they're going to be held, and when the city council meetings are and when they're going to be held. And if I'm just getting back into that because I felt disenfranchised, or I felt that, like, freedom was on cruise control for a couple decades or whatever the
Mm,
case may be, then
mm.
reintegrating into that knowledge and becoming a part of it actively sometimes can be a little daunting.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we, or not just the Radical Roots, but could we, as in Union County and probably any county in the nation, if somebody's willing to put together that like calendar of all all the cities and municipalities into like one little nice format, it would make things a little bit
ChatGPT, put that
I
in
try,
ChatGPT.
yeah, I try, but that
But
one's
with
still a
all
little
these
rough.
supposed
But
left-wing George Soros billionaires, why can't we just get a couple apps together that are pro
Democracy.
democracy?
Hmm.
well,
I
and
Just
mean,
make
because
it
most
easy.
most billionaires aren't for democracy, hence why they're billionaires.
yeah, and so I think that there's a lot of to your point about wanting more power. That's why Musk is creating his own party, because he doesn't have the power that he thought he would, right? And so he doesn't have the
Mm,
control, and losing that control as a narcissist is a
deadly.
nightmare, right? And you have and kind of bring us to our next topic, Sam Altman, who put out a Fourth of July post,
Ooh,
who basically
nice.
said that he's politically homeless in his July
Oh,
4th post, bashing.
But not
yikes.
actually homeless because he's got many big houses.
Many a big home.
But he
Many,
said he's no.
Casa
He
Grande.
says he's no longer aligned. Yeah, here's his
With the
post.
left or the right?
He's proud to be American, but he believes in techno
Oh,
capitalism. So he's keeping
ooh,
it like,
nice.
in the company of Elon Musk,
Yeah, all these other
you know,
freaks.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Palantir,
Right.
Google, Amazon, the
I'm for like
Bezos.
I'm for like a social currency type of guy. I'm like a social credit type of guy. That's what I don't want democracy. I want you guys to like. I want to make sure that like your tweets aren't like offending the regime type
Yeah,
guy.
Because
That's
your
that's where I'm
score
at
will go
politically.
down and then you can't get a
Yeah,
loan.
but
exactly.
when I read this, I think Curtis Yarvin, right? I think
Oh yeah, yeah. They're all fucking
there,
freaks.
and so he tries to say, well, everyone should be rich and everyone should be experience the world as a billionaire. Well, first
Okay.
off, first, what does that mean? Like flying around in yachts, private jets. Second off, the reason why the billionaires exist and they're able to do those things is because they've created this underclass, right? And if everyone was doing it, then
There would be no. They're right.
the
But
Right.
money
how
wouldn't matter.
gross and
The money wouldn't
assumptive.
matter, right?
Why
So there's a way
they
to do
think
it.
that everybody wants to be rich.
They
Like
think everyone
what
wants to
I
be
why
think
can't
that's
them.
life. I think
that,
that's what life
yeah,
is. I
like
think when they tore up cultures and colonized these places, that and I know that it
Right. It's
wasn't
I'm
Sam Altman.
civilizing you. You want to be like me. You want this whole shit y'all got going on here? No, you want to be like me. Sam
yeah, and most
Altman, the
recently
guy.
just
Right.
consume and give
Yes.
the investors their dividends.
But these are people who, and they get rich. I don't know where they forget. I don't know where Sam Altman came from, right? But
A fucking
we're
lab.
listening to these,
A douche lab.
and I'm disappointed, right? Because OpenAI was it continues currently to technically be a nonprofit, but they're moving away from that, right? And I
Yeah.
think the writing's on the wall, and they're going to be right there with them. They're all sucking up to Donald Trump and wanting to get
Come
into a
on.
room, but I think we just have to stop like listening to, and I know so
Billionaires?
billionaires, and
Yeah.
especially billionaires, but people who are just like drenched and cloaked in privilege, right? And
Yeah.
especially these rich ones. And this kind of reminded me of the Joe Rogan. I'm gonna hop over to that because he also says something this week. He said, it's insane the targeting of migrant workers and not cartel members, not gang members,
All
not drug
right.
dealers, just construction workers showing up on construction sites and raiding them. And I'm actually gonna play the clip because I don't know,
Yeah,
dude.
play that. Let's see
And
what he's
people
talking
want to
about.
tell you that human growth
Insane.
hormone doesn't affect your
We were
cognition.
told there would be no. Well, there's two things that are insane. One is the targeting of migrant workers, not cartel members, not gang members, not drug dealers, just construction workers showing up in construction sites and raiding them. Gardeners.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Oh,
Like,
just,
Can't believe it,
just.
Joe.
Can you believe it? I mean, it's not only there's the but people talking this was going to happen. Can you believe it? And at a certain point, we have to stop letting Joe Rogan have epiphanies.
Yeah, and this is
Like I'm over Joe Rogan having fucking epiphanies.
this
Like, can
is
you believe that Trump wants to deport people that are not? Can you believe? Like,
like
yes, motherfucker, I
Curious
can believe this
George,
shit.
oh Curious George ass, like so acting, dumb. But this is where it's like, okay, well, where's the wisdom? This is where I feel like the wisdom of black women, especially these
Right.
92% who had the
It
the
gets erased.
wherewithal to like to vote
Hmm.
92% of like realizing what was coming, not only for black folks but for the collective Americans, right? Like for Latinos, for immigrants, for all these people. Like it's like you need to listen to people who have gone through trials and tribulations, or whose ancestors. I feel like there's a
But you can't.
ancestral intuition
I
that
was gonna
I
say some
have
people just have
that
to have it learned,
some
Yeah, but
unfortunately.
but you can't, and the reason why that I agree with you, Rom. That's is 100% what needs to happen. But there's a reason why that does not happen. The reason I will not listen to you because you said it's someone, because I don't see you as a someone. Sarah Kinzinger book, I forget, now I do forget the title of that book, but Sarah Kinzinger's book, she talks about normalcy bias, where it's the idea of where we've heard these phrases like, "Who could have expected this?" and "No one saw this coming." The no one are black people. That is not a one. That is not a who. When they're saying who, they're like, you are
Yeah,
not
and
a
how dare
person.
you make me
Right.
synonymous
Even,
with
even though
no
even,
one?
even though there are people who have been speaking up for hundreds of years, those are not humans. Those are not people. So when we're talking about who and no one, it's who is the who. This is why I always qualify when people are talking, well, who is the we? We need to come together. Who's we? Who's
Yeah.
what? Like who's doing this? Because if not, we're going to allow the excuses and the runway to be laid out for people to continually do this thing, and we'll be here for another 249 years. And we have to be honest that there are people that are choosing to not tap into their humanity because they've been sold the American dream, which was always a dream, and dare I say a nightmare for some of us. That the idea that you are an individual, the society, to hell with that, rugged individualism, bootstraps, John Wayne, on the range, that's you. In
Well,
reality,
when you fear monger, that's theoretical, right? So now you
right.
can come to them with actual receipts and actual results, and we just have to keep platforming those who have the information, and that will change minds.
But who's the we? Who's we? Who's we? Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough, who spent his whole life,
No, 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 us.
I'm
When
just
we
saying,
share
like these are
things,
the
right?
platforms, right? Where for folks
Yeah.
who don't have as much time to listen to a podcast, the only time they may have is the 20 minutes or 30 minutes they're driving into work, and they're trying to listen to liberal things they think, and it's Joe Scarborough, right? And this is a man who spent 20
Mm-hmm.
years in Congress, impeaching Bill Clinton
Oh,
and
he
quote
went to
unquote
visit Trump as soon as he got reelected.
suckling at the teat of Trump, right? This is who we have, and he's on the liberal network, right, MSNBC, for 20 hours a week. No one has that much airtime on MSNBC, but Joe Scarborough does. And I'm just using him as an example because as we're talking about, we have to do this stuff. This is what happens by our entertainment, corporate-led, billionaire-owned media that they got us to this point, right? That are hyper normalizing this thing. We're calling it a win for the Trump administration, this BBL bill. But in reality, the material conditions for so many people will be just disastrous, and people are going to die. Kids are going to go hungry. But the media is still framing it as a win for Trump. And anytime a Democrat ever tries to propose something progressive, then I mean, can the Democrats do that? Can you afford it? Right? That is the media putting its thumb on the scale rather than letting the informed proletariat and electorate actually make the right choices for
And even
themselves.
even in these new spaces, right, we have really good actors. Like the Tennessee Holler went dark on a couple of their platforms last week, and they had no idea why. And they are doing
Mm.
really good
Oh
expositional
yeah,
work, and they've
love the
got
Tennessee
great
Holler.
following.
That's right.
So like, just somehow or another they weren't
Mm.
on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok anymore. So
Uh-oh.
to think that that could be taken away from you, and you build and you build and you build and you do things the right way, but it's just another platform that is owned by some kind of oligarch, and if they want to, they can make it go dark overnight.
Yeah,
And that's
and
why I will
that's
never
and
feel
that's
sorry for a billionaire.
yeah, and we've talked about that before too. Like people who have the Don Lemons and the Joy Reids and
Yep.
Midas Touch network,
Hmm.
right? They're running primarily off YouTube. Yes, they have a Substack presence, but YouTube is probably the bread and butter. Again, YouTube is owned by Google, right? So Google is trying to
Mhm.
get it. So at any given point, they could just pull it all back,
Yeah.
right? And so I guess again, it's something to be wary and conscious of. ChatGPT has
Yep.
been, generally speaking, more focused on privacy and not abusing AI. However, again, I see that they're moving away from that. One thing I want to touch on before we move to the next topic, Sam Altman. So, kind of going back to his statement, but one thing that, and this is a criticism of the Democrats, because to me, when I read this, he's kind of alluding to the win of Mamdani in New York,
Mom, Donnie.
and
Hmm.
he is basically saying that, this is a socialist
Ugh.
ideas, and he's,
Mm.
the Democratic Party seemed recently in
Boogeyman.
line when I was 20. They've lost the plot and have moved somewhere else. He says he'd rather hear from candidates about how they're going to make
Ugh.
everyone have the stuff billionaires have, instead of how are they going to eliminate billionaires. But to that point, like, Mamdani has controlled the narrative. He now represents all Democrats, because the Democrats have not had a message. They have not
That's right.
had any kind of platform for the past, what are we almost going on a
Two
year at
It's
this
8
years?
point?
I
years.
say
Well,
2 years
yeah,
probably.
really, but really, like,
Honestly,
but seriously, like, he's controlled the
yeah.
entire narrative. He's been able to, and this is
He
this
stepped
is
into the
one
vacuum.
one race. And
That's right.
so, and I have no problem with his platform. I think that that platform needs it to be, I think, more
Talk about the
radical
art of the deal.
platforms.
Start up here, and then we'll meet him right
Yeah.
here. We're gonna ask for the world
Hey,
right now.
Absolutely.
even
Well,
if
I said,
it's
well, the thing is, if Trump gets to run on this platform of lying to people and then he never actually ends up doing anything, at least Zoran Mamdani is saying, like, I want to do this
What a
shit.
and he has
Yes,
a and he has a plan.
and I need the governor and I need the General Assembly of New York to get there. But like, this is what I'm going to fight for. Trump saying, like, I got concepts of a plan and we're going to make sure that eggs are going to be cheaper. I'm going to end the wars on day one. He's just saying shit. And the thing is, but there's certain people that want to believe the lies. I don't, I mean, I don't know if Zoran Mamdan's going to get all that stuff done. I know he does require other organs of government to get that stuff done, but I like where his head is at. And it is from a people centric perspective. And Trump is from a very nihilistic, I'm trying to get power. And that's what a fascist does. If a fascist says, a fascist is an authoritarian, or a demagogue, I should say, is very good at articulating your problems. Yes, your dollar does not go further this year than it did last year. Yes, your schools are terrible. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is those people. And give me the power and I'll solve it. Now, that's not what Zoran Mamdani is saying. He's saying the problem is this corrupt government. It's this, this old austerity politics. It is big money in our government. It is blah blah blah. These other things. My plan is to lower your cost by doing X, Y, and Z. Now, will I get there? Hopefully I can. But if not, I'm gonna do my damnedest.
It's
It's
not
a
for not
lot
trying.
easier. It's a lot easier to tear something down than it is to build something up. And I
And
think
it's
you
hold
have
on, and just
to.
real quick, does Sam Altman live in New York?
I don't know.
Thought he lived in
Uh,
California.
Okay. Because I'm like, for him to be like, I want to hear from Democrats on this. I'm like, motherfucker,
uh,
like, you don't even live there. You
you
don't you
know,
don't go here.
but yeah, but it's a lot harder to build something up than it is to tear something down. And I think,
That's right.
live life like you can change the world tomorrow, right? Your
Whatever
famous
that
quote,
phrase
wherever that
was.
quote from, but like,
Whatever that quote was
look,
that Ron keeps
but
attributing to me.
like, how, like, an idea, have a plan, be innovative, be creative.
Be
You talk about,
passionate.
like, okay, we're gonna do something different and put $50 million into a city-owned grocery store. We're talking about the necessities to survive:
Can we afford that? Can we
food,
afford
But
that?
so
water,
also we're talking
diapers. And
about
we're talking about not, like, creating this like this corporation to price gouge, because wasn't it Kroger who raised the price of eggs, or raised the prices
Yeah.
preemptively during COVID, and after all these things, because they're protecting their profits, they're protecting their shareholders. So is it that radical to have a city owned grocery store? You know what I mean? To make sure there's not food deserts
no.
for certain communities.
And I
And
think that, like, to Perron's earlier point, what are we talking about is a mixture of messaging and personality.
Mm-hmm.
So you have somebody like Bernie Sanders who can be almost all messaging.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Mamdani who can be more personality driven. But
Hmm.
I do believe that in the end, you can have a meek librarian come up there with a democratic socialist platform and just read off line by line what they'd like to do. And as long as they're audible, you're going to get 40%, 50%, 60% of the voting population because it will affect them positively. And it doesn't have to have as much personality attached to it. But sometimes to reach the biggest people, you have to have the most articulate and the most charismatic folks doing the job. And that
I
is
don't know.
where that
It worked for
vacuum has
Trump.
been.
It worked for Trump though. Trump is not the
That's what I
most.
mean. Yeah, it was all
He's
personality
charismatic,
because he's grievance politics, and there is somebody. Everybody's got a grievance. So as
right?
long as your grievance was on his ever expanding list, he was
Hmm.
able to vacuum up your attention and your vote.
I mean,
Yeah.
charisma and conviction go a long way. I would say Trump does not. He has his convictions out, regardless of where you stand on.
Hmm.
Where he does not
He's
Hmm.
been
back
wanting
down,
tariffs
right?
for 40
He
years. That's true.
he does
What do you
not.
say?
Yeah, terrorists for 40. He's been talking about terrorists for 40 years, right? So,
Forever.
Oh,
but he doesn't back down. He stands his ground. He's charismatic. He gets people. But I also think that that's the same thing that Mamdani possesses, right?
Hmm.
He's charismatic. He doesn't back down. He knows how to stay focused on this, keep the conversation focused. So he keeps it focused on what he wants to. He does it in a style that's not
confrontational.
yeah, and also
It
like not a he's also not a moron, right? Like so
right.
And he's
he
And
not talking down to anybody
no,
right.
he's
either.
not at all. And I think that, I mean, I will give Mamdani this. I think he's one of the more skilled politicians we've seen in my lifetime. Even more than Obama. Like his
Mhm.
again, his ability to pivot and bring things back and still have a positive note. Now, granted, they're running
Did
for
you
different levels of office, right? Obama's running for presidency, so there's a lot more of kind of a wider stance he needs to take. But his ability to turn on a dime, I mean, when I watch him on other podcasts too, or like where people are analyzing his interviews, and just the sheer like impressiveness that he has of these people who have been doing this for a long time as well is like, man, this guy he's good. But I do have one grievance. I know we have a lot of grievances with the Democratic Party on this podcast, but for the past 2 weeks, we knew the BBL bill was coming out, and folks were going to be mad about it, and there's going to be a lot of issues. But dare I say, I still don't think a lot of Americans know what's inside the bill. I think people understand like the Medicaid cuts and maybe some SNAP stuff, but that's all they really know. Um, and the Democrats have really let the ball, they've really dropped the ball, right? And because for the past 2 weeks, instead of letting people know what's in the BBL bill, the big ugly bill from hell, what were they doing? They were attacking Zoran Mamdani on the exact same strategy that Alligator Man James Carville said that we need to do is it's the economy, stupid. And he was hyper focused on the
The
economy, which
economy.
you said we needed to do. It
Hmm.
was focused on kitchen table issues, right? Being able to get to work on a train, being able to have free health, not free health care, free childcare, government controlled groceries, right? We're talking about the price of eggs, tying all these things back. And the Democratic Party
Brand interference.
chose to attack him
Yeah.
afterwards, right? So I'm like, they're not, we're talking about how do we get the youth vote, how to get youth excited. He got the youth vote
After he won too. After he won, like
after
that
he
was the
won.
stupidest thing I've
Still haven't
ever seen because
endorsed.
yeah, I thought like that now's the time to criticize each other. It's time for the infighting. It's time to best man win. Time for the primaries. When the primaries are over, look, it's
circle the
kumbaya.
wagon?
It's kumbaya. Like that's who I'm going with. I mean, granted, like I don't know who's gonna be in these primaries, but like, what is it? Vote blue, no matter who.
That's what they
Okay, you
said.
know, vote blue no matter who. Now you got
They said, nah, I don't know
you
about that one.
so hey,
They said, now
When the
I might,
sides are that starkly opposed, you know which side you're on. This is not like, well, he's not doing enough. It's like, yes, but we know that the opposition is damn near evil
I
at
don't
this
know.
point.
Eric Adams seems to be quite interesting now from those
Uh,
from those types, right? Oh, I don't know. Maybe this corrupt person or the sex pest,
look,
there's a
Andrew
lot of
Cuomo.
New
people
York,
sitting out there with the sword of Damocles over their head, so they
Hmm.
feel
New York has an
compassion for the man.
opportunity to stop picking corruption. Illinois had problems with corruption where I'm from. Had problems with corruption for many
Sure
years.
did.
I didn't vote for Blagojevich
Hmm.
long before when he was.
Oh,
I could
that's
tell.
Trump's boy.
Look, I could tell he was trash from the jump. So right, so I voted. That was the first time I voted Green Party. But then and then what happens? Here he is off selling seats and partaking.
Crazy.
And so New York, Eric Adams. Cuomo. Like
God bless
they've
these
they've
Negroes.
showed you they've showed you who they are. So please don't make the wrong decision. I don't think
When
they
has he
will
ever not been a
make the wrong
clown?
decision.
I
But
mean, every gaff is. I mean, is that's one thing you're gonna get. We're gonna get some quality Eric Adams up until November. You because remember
Well,
he also
speaking of
said,
coverage, like when I hear the people on the backwater news outlets on Facebook,
hmm
like talking about the big beautiful bill, you can tell what kind of information they're getting and what kind of
hmm
spheres they're swimming in. So they're just saying, yes, thank God we're finally getting rid of all of these illegals who are taking these government benefits wrongly. And it's like, you could not be more off base if you made it up out of whole cloth, out of like word salad from your ass. This
But
is
what makes them happy is that one word that you said was when they get to say illegals.
illegals.
When they
They
get
love it and they
everything
repeat
else
it
around
over and
that,
over again.
yeah, like everything else around that is kind
it
of
helps
like
them
doesn't.
dehumanize, get rid of the
Yeah,
empathy,
like
get rid of the
that's the
empathy.
goal, right? The cruelty is the point. Is once they can get to like I get to say illegals. In reality, like if they committed a crime, crimes are illegal. People are not illegal, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like like I'm sure
Well, then,
Sandy or
then
Frank out there,
Trump's an illegal if we were
right?
going
Trump's an illegal,
by that
right?
same
I'm sure
definition.
Sandy and Frank. I'm sure you got a DUI back in the day. Are you an illegal because you committed a
Melania
crime?
is an illegal.
Right. I mean, but that's the thing is that they want to dehumanize and because we racialize immigration. We say immigrants are always brown people from South America, and those are the only immigrants that we're talking about, and those are the only people that are quote unquote illegal. Melania's not one. Trump's
Mm-mm.
mother's not one.
Not from a shithole country.
His grandfather from Germany is not one. Mind you, no one in the Trump family has ever dropped their blood in service for this country, and we have this man out here telling us those of us who have been here for generations that we are not people, we are undeserving, we are the bane of the existence of this country, and we're allowing that because we don't make up the majority, but like we need people to really take the rose-colored glasses off as it relates to this regime and understand that the war is already happening here. The fight is already here, folks. We have assassinations in Colorado of elected officials. We have, January 6th. We have, David
Normalizing violence against the immigrants, like
David
people
David
taking
DePape.
selfies
Right,
in front of alligator Alcatraz, saying like,
right.
"This is where the cool stuff happens. Can't wait for them to get their next meal
That's
because
right.
they can die and everything will be just fine. I won't lose a wink of sleep."
Laura Loomer said, we're going to give the alligator 65 million more meals. And
Mm-hmm.
if they're, and my thing is this, if they were going after truly, the criminals that Trump,
Worst of the worst.
he came down the escalator, June 17th, 2015, saying that I'm going after, some of them, I'm assuming some of them are good people. They're rapists and murderers and they do crime. Like if they were serious about going after the most violent, so why don't you start in the prisons?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you, if it's about the criminals, we got a bunch of them. Right, well, start there. I know there's some immigrants there, but what? But no, it's the cruelty is the point. And once we had to hit these fools between the eyes, especially the people that like it, because the Robert Burnses of the world are trying to stand behind the the false edifice of this word illegal, because that should freeze you into any sort of criticism, because we're saying the law. How could you not want these people who are not following the law? Again, you voted for a felon who is a
And
who
speaking of deporting people from the jails, they are deporting some people from the jails, just MS-13 members or Tren de Aragua members, back to El Salvador because if they face trial here, you would find out all the different agreements that the El Salvadorian government has with these gangs to keep everybody in check there. So
right.
that is actually what's going on right now. Like you're not able to see the light of day whenever possible because those people are not going to be put through the judicial process properly.
And I know this wasn't on our rundown, but I just want to I did hear about this, and I just wanted to kind of talk about it for a couple seconds. But Kilmore Burger Garcia, so I'm sure you guys have heard that he's been released, and he was able to at least have a statement about what was happening to him down in Secot. I mean, that y'all, this is just straight up torture.
Mm-hmm.
I think he said that him and 20 other people were basically tortured. I'm sure there's more, but there's, I think, 20 people that he wanted to name or at least talk about. And he said they had them in that terrible position on their knees, kind of all uniformed, standing on their knees from I think 8 p.m. to 9 in the morning. And if anybody fell, due to exhaustion, they would be beaten. He lost 31 pounds in the first 2 weeks. Like, how does that happen? Right? How does that, like, that is pure torture. And there's no calories, right? Like, so this is what we are funding when we're talking about, oh, the taxes, this is what your tax dollars are going to. Because remember, we're paying El Salvador for this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't
And
just some sort of like
now we're sending folks to Sudan.
Oh,
supposedly.
and alligator Alcatraz, which is also something we wanted to talk about, but um,
which is already flooded. And if y'all don't think that was the purpose for to flood and for to kill, these are concentration camps. These are meant to kill people. The
Yeah, who
conditions are
needs the
supposed to kill
gas
people.
when Mother Nature is going to take care of it for us because
That's
of
right.
our planned ineptitude at building the damn place?
Because these are just tents, right? So, and this in the Everglades, where they say the Everglades may not exist for another 30 years. So,
yeah, so these people out here taking pictures with their kids, like
Christians.
And I don't doubt that there would be people out there watching people get fed to alligators. I'm dead serious. There's people who would enjoy that, especially in Florida.
That's
I
right.
don't doubt that they would have fights or what's that not Hunger Games, what's that show on Netflix,
Bum fights? No.
Squid Games.
Squid Games.
Squid
And they floated, like, I don't remember if y'all remember this when they
It's
were
Chrissy Gnome.
floating around producers, having the actual Squid Game type things.
Yep.
And again, this is also same people who used to watch lynchings, right? Lynch
That's
parties.
right.
So
And smile.
yeah,
There you go.
and bring out their
And before I
kids,
knew about
right?
that, there were people who were like watching Christians get eaten by the lions in the Colosseum, and you hear about that when you're in like grade school or Catholic Sunday school, wherever you went. And it's hard to believe. You think that happened a million years ago, and yet if you learn your history a couple years from then, you find out that it happened in your own
These are
backyard
people
a generation ago.
These people want to call everyone else, call us violent. So,
well, I got to, because I have, because if it comes down that I'm the violent one, that means I need to do some internal work. That means these systems that were set up for me to be violent, I might need to think about and change. But no, I have to call the 14% of the population, black people, they're the issues. The 20% of the Latino community of the population, they're the problem,
And
not
they want to
us.
equivocate reactionary violence to proactive violence.
That's
So
right.
they're not the same.
Abraham Lincoln called it the Wolf's Dictionary. He said that when there's a farmer that went out and saw a sheep in the jowls of a wolf, and the sheep said, "Please liberate me, farmer." Then the farmer took the sheep out of the wolf's mouth, and the wolf said, "Wait, you are infringing on my liberty to eat this sheep." So the word liberty is used twice, but it's the Wolf's Dictionary, and we have been allowing the Wolf's Dictionary to dictate our policy for centuries in this country.
Yeah. So switching gears, got a couple more stories to cover. So this, as you all know,
Yes.
2 days ago, the flooding in Texas, and I think about 80 people have lost their lives. Many more still missing. It's very sad.
So how about the actual numbers, right?
But
it was 15 inches of rain.
15
inches of rain in one day, and the Pueblo River
I think
rose.
Which one is it? Guadalupe?
Or no, the Guadalupe.
Guadalupe, I think.
It rose 26 feet.
It's insane. It's like and I think one. So I think there's a lot of things that in the postmortem of like what happened here, what went wrong. There's going to be a lot. I think obviously the early warning of the weather service that was warned to us, but also, and I think one of the things that they were actually saying that there was going to be flooding, so they were warning, but they were putting a lot of, from what I've read and understand, they were putting a lot of this on X as like the official platform, right? Which is in itself is
like it was coming from X.
Like they were putting it on Twitter. Like
that was the
X.
only place.
Yeah, that was like the only place that like they were putting the primarily these warnings.
So fucking base, bro. That's so fucking base.
And so then, and again, I haven't talked about this a lot since the day of after the election, but climate change is real. Like I don't think that
no.
I don't think that Again, we
What?
talk about these 100-year storm. How can you have a 100-year storm 2 years in a row, right? And like,
Well, that's not what a 100-year storm means,
what does it
but
mean?
yes.
What does it
But
mean?
it means like a storm. It doesn't mean that it comes every 100
No,
years.
okay,
It
then
means
I'll
that
forgive my ignorance.
no,
No,
it's okay.
so
Yeah,
thank you for correcting me. But
yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, it basically means a storm that I guess that is so large and grandiose that we would technically it would be historic,
Uh huh.
but it's not necessarily about the time frame. It's
Okay,
about like it's severity.
but how often are we
And
supposed to have these? Because I don't recall having like these type of storms every year.
I mean, I don't know how often we're supposed to have any of
Absolutely
this
not.
shit.
We're having everything far more
Right.
often, and
I don't think we're supposed to,
Well,
everything
but
far.
I might have jacked up the definition of 100 year storm, but it's not that. I
okay.
do know that because I got into that discussion a couple years ago. And they're like, that's not what it means. I looked it up. It is not that. I don't have it in front of me, but do your Google, folks. You'll see what it means.
But
Anyway, but yes,
but
it's sad.
but they, I think you were talking about earlier is that they want to have the power and the control. They have the power of the NOAA. They have power of the Weather Service. They have power of Texas has the power of Texas. But no one's taking accountability, right? No one's
Accountability for nothing.
yeah. So
And
And
then
you also couple
remember,
that with the ineptitude because you have a brain drain in a lot of these places. So you've got less qualified individuals in the same seats. So it's a net negative in terms of the aptitude you have at all these places.
well, and then you have
we
Christy
also
Nome.
had
You have Christy Nome, who also was supposed to be like this. I guess this is in her purview, right? Homeland Security, apparently. But she's been
no, no
focused. They're hyper focused on, rounding up,
brown folks.
yeah, rounding up brown
Disappearing
folks,
folks.
That's it.
disappearing, and
I ain't got time to care about
going down
your
to
little kids
Ecuador, and going down to all
taking pictures.
yeah. So
I don't have time to protect your little white
they're
kids at a
taking
Christian school. I got to go round up some migrants. I got to go get these illegals off the streets.
they're
Wait,
taking the eye off the ball. You got they're just not focused where they need to be, and this is again what we continue to warn about is like
it's sad. It's sad, and I think I talk about this a lot. Where like and I bring this book up a couple times now, but down to whiteness. But like this is white supremacy doesn't just harm black, brown, other people. It also hurts white people. Where you have incompetent people who are more focused on harming other people than public safety. And this is another example because don't forget, this is also in tandem with a couple years ago we had Cancun cruise getting out of Texas. Remember that ice storm that killed
Hmm.
however many hundreds of people?
He had vacation plans and he could not break them.
And then he left his dog Snowflake, ironic name for Ted Cruz. He left his dog Snowflake at the house, and then blamed his daughters because once again, power over everything, but responsibility for nothing. And so this is the state that people continually vote for this. And I'm not saying anybody deserves this, but what I do want is hopefully people understand that this is not inevitability. This is incompetence. This is public policy that they're allowing to fall by the wayside just to get you ginned up about some brown person, some trans person. That's like at least they got those three trans people not playing softball in Texas now, but they got a bunch of kids missing, and I think 20 girls that are confirmed dead, I believe, right? Like
it is, and to your point, it is incompetence, and because it doesn't come in the form of a mass shooting or a terrorist. And here's the other thing: like when
that's
when
right.
mass shooting kills 14 kids, they don't bat an eye. So they're not gonna. No one's
They
really
sure
gonna bat
don't.
an eye. This is to them. This is collateral damage, right? It was inevitable.
And I'm
These
so
people
tired of
lives,
thoughts and prayers.
and
Because Mike Johnson was on the Sunday shows and he said the most we can do right now, the MAGA Muppet.
is all we can do is
Mike
pray.
Johnson, he looks like Ernie. He's all most we can do is pray right now. And I'm like, dude,
But
I'm so
also,
sick
like,
of it.
I think I heard you say something to the effect of, let's not, nobody should ever revel in it. When these terrible things come to pass because of their bad judgment, we're not
Right.
sitting here because you know that you kind of have the moral high ground because you would never wish that upon anyone. You
No.
wish them to be less ignorant, absolutely,
Mhm.
and you wish that they would have made better decisions, and you wish that people were not deceiving them left and right. But you don't wish people to die, and
No.
you certainly aren't taking solace in the fact that they're reaping what they sow or anything like that, because that's just not what anyone should be about.
No,
be done
not at all.
congressionally,
And I think that,
legislatively to help these folks?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp.
Name drop,
we also
yeah.
had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we know to do at this moment is pray. Every available resource has been deployed. The president, of course, is dialed in and watching this develop moment by moment as we are, and we will.
It's
All right,
to me, it's a
real
cop
quick.
out. It's a cop out. They're placing the responsibility on God, right? Like it's not in their hands.
And that's what I wanted to say. So, like, you guys, black guys, can't infiltrate the type of spaces maybe that I can, right?
Mhm.
So, talking about using your power and your privilege, well, I can probably waltz into a lot of these evangelical churches and maybe just sit in and see what they're talking about, especially on days like today, um, after these type of
I,
terrible occurrences. And are they given any blame where it is due, or are they just simply saying there's nothing that could be done?
yeah, I'm glad you brought up infiltration in a little bit of a tangent, but look, that absolutely needs to be part of strategies, whether it's in these security at Alcatraz or the alligator Alcatraz, whether it's in ICE. Um, honestly, that I think that's what people need to start thinking about on their own, like because we've had people
In
who have
quiet.
infiltrated, yeah, infiltrated white supremacist organizations and have done whole entire exposés and really. I think wonderful work because what comes out of it is all of these law enforcement people are in there. So again, people need to start thinking about a little bit more about those type of things, thinking about self-defense and
I
that
was
type
just
of stuff
hearing
as well.
today or rereading today about the putsch that happened or that almost happened that over was going to overthrow FDR, I believe,
Oh yeah,
in
with Smedley Butler. Hmm.
right. And so
Hmm.
he was proposed to be like, hey, you can be the leader of this whole thing.
Hmm.
And he ended up testifying before Congress
That's
and
right.
squashing the whole thing. And that was set up by the pro-capitalist movement. And they're
Sure
like,
was.
listen, we cannot have this man again. So how about we prop you up? And he said, no, thank you. And that was a
Hmm.
really big deal.
That
That could have been
was.
a completely alternative timeline that they probably would have gotten away with if he had said yes.
God, what would it look like if Smedley Butler would have went through with that? And he wrote the book, War is a Racket, So that this is it all comes back, right, to this imperialist kind of expansionist. The imperial boomerang, the stuff we do in other countries, it'll eventually come back home. These folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson who are against Obama and Iran and what's going on in Israel, like. And we like those clips, but in reality, it's coming from a place of a nativist perspective, where they want to turn the guns. They've always wanted to turn the guns inward on the country, so they can have dominance over the borders of the country. So it's not really like, oh, we're against, yes, bombing people over there, but they want to spend the time killing people here. They want to spend the time dominating people here. So that's really where their ethic and their politic is rooted in, not necessarily for global peace or any sort of like liberation. And this is why those will always be my enemy. And yes, I might like a clip or two, and I'm like I appreciate it in the moment, but we cannot accept these people as fair weather fans or fair weather allies. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got one more story here today. The well, I'm gonna take it unless you guys have something else. I'm gonna take it to Monroe.
I'm good. Yeah, what you got?
So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on the screen here.
Monroe, where this coming Tuesday, City Council will discuss a vote of no confidence for Mayor Robert Burns. This follows a series of
Yikes.
contentious events for the city and the mayor. Burns, you might remember, was censured last year after a controversial proclamation he made celebrating the anniversary of Roe v. Wade being reversed. Burns also received criticism for comments he made on a Facebook post last year. Next week's meeting is set for 4 p.m. Separate.
So he's first off, he's this mayor who's
Bobby Burns.
he
They're not
takes his cues.
saying
He taking his cues
boo, they're
from
saying boo
he's
Earns.
taking his cues from the GOP, right? So that's why he's always talking about these national issues that really do not matter. He's talking about Roe v. Wade. What can you control about Roe v. Wade in Monroe? Nothing, not a damn thing. So
Well,
why bother?
he's of the mindset, your body, my choice. That's why he was saying it. That proclamation he put out was basically the more politically correct way of saying your body, my choice.
He's
Right.
leading by tone and temperature, and if that
Right.
attracts enough people to win, that's fine because that means he doesn't have to focus on the actual issues confronting the town that he leads.
Distractions.
Yeah, so that's coming up on Tuesday.
Ooh.
He is he's incompetent. He's a liar. So I wouldn't know why you have confidence in somebody. Again, this is why I bring up at these council meetings, and I think they quoted me in here as well. But like, I think that this is. I think it's. I don't know what's actually gonna how this actually takes place. Like what actually comes of
Gonna
this in
happen.
Monroe. But I
Hmm.
do think that the similar. I think it matters. I think the
Yeah.
theatrics it matters. So if the council does this bipartisan council, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, come and say that there's a no confidence in the mayor, I think that matters, right? So
Well, like you say, in the long game, right? This man already has a track record, and this will be just one more bullet point when he comes up again as to, oh, yeah, that's the guy who was screwing around the last time, or that's the guy nobody believed in last year. So I think that playing the long game, these are all the type of
yeah, so
um,
I think the community in Union County and Monroe has done a pretty good job in putting a spotlight on these things, and as well as the council, right? And I think this is another example of helping shape the narrative, right? Because if the people can put a spotlight on these things and attract media attention, and I think that those things matter, right? As opposed to no accountability, just doing things without anyone noticing, which is exactly what he's tried to do and what a lot of local municipalities have done. And that's how they get away with corruptness, and that's on both sides of the aisle, right? If no one's holding somebody accountable, then they're gonna do things. I don't know if that's human nature or what, especially of these politicians, but yeah, he's incompetent, period. So I don't know why there would be
Yeah.
any confidence in him. And he's canceled. He's been able to work with the GOP to cancel the 2025 Monroe elections without anyone knowing, and that alone should disqualify him. But now
it,
he's gonna go ahead.
it will be interesting to see what type of like systemic machinations come from that. Like, is he then censured from being able to put forth anything, or like what are the actual
I don't
consequences of
know.
that vote?
Yeah, we'll report on
So,
that on Thursday. I'm gonna try. I don't know
mhm.
if I'm gonna go to that one, but I'll be at the council meeting. But he has aspirations, right? So the minute that Tillis, I think even before Tillis had stepped down, he was talking about
Oh,
his
he was
seat. He's
there
been talking about
He
Tillis's
loved
seat
it.
for a long time, but
licking his
he
chops.
was yeah, he was already licking the boots. But
He licking
now
something.
he's got to go up. He's got competition. He's got Laura Trump potentially taking his rightful seat. Something he's been probably
Now she makes a hot
promised.
track. She makes a hot track with French Montana. So I don't know if he's ready to hit the booth
Now,
and
who's
try
she the
to.
wife of? Which one is she the wife of?
I think the dumb one.
Okay,
The
so
Eric,
yeah, Eric.
Oh,
Okay,
I don't know. Well, you pick. Yeah, yes, Eric. Yes, but the dumb
Beavis and
one.
Butthead. Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know, man. How can you compete with that? Like, he think he's like, what can he do about that?
Now I'll say this:
Trump.
we have not seen a Trump outside of Donald have the political cachet that Donald does. So, and there's been a lot of people that he's endorsed that have not won elections in primaries. So I'm just saying, like, it's not like
Besides Mary,
Mary Trump.
right? Or the one daughter who be like who's completely against her family.
Tiff,
Yeah, yeah,
his cousin or his niece, Mary Trump. She don't go. She don't fuck with him at all.
yeah. No,
That's
no.
what I
He's
mean. Yeah, like in a good way, she at least has had
Oh no,
some
I mean like
impact.
I
he's
mean like
like
actual
command of the
no I mean like elected wins.
yeah.
You know, like I
Right.
mean like people voting for these people. So we have not seen because there's always these kind of machinations that we're gonna have like a Donald Trump Jr. run in 2020,
Hmm.
but we haven't seen anything yet. Or someone with the Trump name outside of Trump.
No, I think
So
Vance is he's in Vance the rightful.
Heir
no,
to the throne.
I
Yeah.
mean for another
I know,
position.
I
I mean
know, I know,
like
I know what
yeah
you're saying, but I was
yeah.
I'm saying like in 2028, isn't it going to be like Vance once versus one of the Trumps to take his place if Donald doesn't decide to
We're gonna see
take
it
his
because
third term?
honestly, no one has the charisma of Donald Trump, and that's the thing about all fascist movements and all cults is that there is no succession plan. right? Like once the cult leader dies, like people die with the cult leader, right? That's why there's a Jonestown. That's why there's a Heaven's Gate. That's why there's these things where people they go out with the cult leader. So
And
I'm
that's
not
why
saying
Bronny James is not LeBron James. You
that's why
know,
Bronny James is not LeBron James. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah.
Like so,
So I
yeah.
think
That's why
there's
Michael Jordan
well,
Jr. is not Michael Jordan. You
that's
know, he's getting
partially
arrested.
yeah, that's partially why they are grooming Laura Trump, right? She has to have something before she hits the national stage. Like I barely even seen this woman. So you know, but here I'm gonna play a little clip. Right
Job.
You should
He's
bring
not going to
French
seek
Montana joint.
re-election, as so many people know.
right.
And you know, I've thought about it, as you said, Sean. I thought about in 22 possibly running in that midterm race for the open Senate seat. We now have Ted Budd as a great senator from my home state of North Carolina. Thought about possibly seeking out, you know, to fill Marco Rubio's big shoes down in Florida, but the timing wasn't right for that. And look, this is new. It's all very fresh. This all happened over the weekend. So there's a lot to process, and there's a lot that would go into this decision. What I can tell you is I have seen how service can impact so many people's lives. I look at my father-in-law as the greatest example of that. And it's a bigger conversation for our entire family to have. And we're not quite there yet. So it's all very fresh and new. But I would love if I ever have the opportunity to represent the people of my home state in North Carolina. It would be a great honor of mine.
So, you know, first off, I don't think she has it. But hey, if she wants to,
No,
to
she's not a
run
true
in-
Trump.
Yeah, she's not. She doesn't have the blood to Trump.
Yeah, right. That Aryan blood. If you don't got that Aryan blood that Trump wants, that pure America that Dan Shai was talking about. If you don't got that pure, uncut, non-stepped on Perico,
But
they don't want you.
poor little Mayor Robert Burns. His hopes and dreams would be
Yes.
dashed because he can't run against his king's daughter-in-law.
equally unqualified and defeatable candidates. So take your pick.
Could you imagine that primary? Well, she's not. I mean, let me tell you something. Here in Monroe Strong, you know, having Laura Trump here is an honor, but also she's also a woman who bleeds 7 days a month. So you know she is nothing but a witch. She's probably had a boy. I mean, like that primary would be so insane.
But then Daddy's going to come down on the mayor just like he did
Yes, he
like to
would.
DeSantis. It's like, I don't
Oh,
care how long you had my
and
heel
that
in
would
your
destroy him.
backside.
That
Yeah,
would
you're
destroy.
done.
He'd be like, wait, but Daddy, I'm your son. I'm Bobby Burns. I'm Bobby Burns. Oh God,
Not
yes.
going to save you.
Not gonna save you, but yeah, but again, I just need to do my obligatory fuck Robert Burns as I do every episode.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I
that.
think it's a good way to end the episode.
I think so. Any calls to action? Anything you guys want folks to focus on this week?
Look, as we said at the beginning, I think people have to figure out how to use their power and their privilege. Be creative, be innovative.
Yeah.
Be prepared to get in the trenches. I think I think there was a couple stories that we didn't really get to show, but it was a daughter who was yelling at her parents who invited the Trump MAGA neighbor over, and she was like, she recorded it like he calling them traitors. You also had a woman who let's see if I can play without the sound here. Shoot.
There was one woman, a white woman, holding a coffee, and like
That
there was,
Margaret Cho?
she was
Yeah.
kept sitting
She's
down
great.
in front of an ICE vehicle.
Oh, let me refresh this, get this out the way. But
But so I think I was telling you guys, go ahead.
wait,
Like there was, she was kept sitting down in front of an ICE vehicle, and they couldn't get out because she would just stand up and sit back down, and they were trying to get around her, and then she just was like, no, just got up and sit back. So we need the audacity. This is like, I don't ever want audacity of white women. Here, like, we need an army of Karens.
Yeah.
This is
yeah.
where they could actually undo some of the bad they've done.
Can you
yeah, so shit like that, right? Like, I mean,
So
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
so I
like
was telling you guys that,
inconvenience, like get in the way.
I said to Brittany, I said, I want to go protest at the Indian Trail 4th of July parade. And she said to me, I'm gonna be honest with you, I already thought about it. And unfortunately, my daughter went and spent the night with her grandparents on 4th of July night. But if she had gone the night before, I already had the wagon ready. I had the generator ready because I had the big screen TV in the back of the wagon that I was going to show all these ICE like I was ready to do this and
Now look at
possibly
that guy.
stand in
He
front
he
of
has a
it.
commercial for us over there. That guy, he has a commercial. He's advertising us.
Absolutely, come see what we got. And I
They
had
would look at it as if it
scripture
was
ready to
good.
go, and I was ready to fight this fight. But like on a long term level, I'm leaning towards becoming an educator,
Mm,
just because I feel like I need to do some more noble pursuits on a day to day basis, and if it's not in the nonprofit sector or something like that, just turn my energy towards a more righteous path on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And all I got is, as we said earlier, as we just saw that video of that, we didn't see the whole video, but the young lady who was yelling at her parents who invited a Trump supporter over. As I said earlier, folks, cowardice is contagious, but also courage is contagious. So I ask everybody out there who listen to our voice on the airwaves or on YouTube to try something different, right? Put yourself in a environment that is not comfortable for you and stay there long enough until you are. And then you will realize that's where the change begins because actually a lot more people are more accepting than you imagine. It might take some internal work you need to get done, but that's okay. That's how we grow. Being in uncomfortable positions is the only way to have political growth. And that's what we are going to require for this next phase of whatever's to come is continually grow. We don't know everything. Continually try to stretch yourself and be courageous. So that's all I got for folks today.
All right. Thank you. I will leave it at that.
Like, share, subscribe.
Well,
We gotta
yeah.
get better at
You
that.
got it. You
We
got
gotta
it.
get better at that, man.
Hey, it shows where our minds at, where we're
That's not. It's not a good business model.
Hey, I guess we're not that good of capitalists, are we?
We're not. Like a socialist for free. Everybody listen to us. Don't share it if you don't want to. But folks,
No.
thank you for listening. I'm your co-host Payron Baxter,
I'm your co-host Ram Sandoval,
And I'm Ron Cabuno.
and
and we will see you. Are you gonna play us out?
I'm gonna play us out. I'm gonna leave it out on that clip of that girl yelling at her.
Okay, here we go. So this is what I was talking about, folks.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Later, y'all.
Parents who allowed a Trump voter over to our house on the 4th of July. This is what it looks like when fascism is hidden by complicity. I was threatened earlier to pay a bill because I'm speaking out against my progressive parents inviting a Trump voter over on the 4th of July.